Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. It started with silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that prickles under your skin, makes you keep looking over your shoulder, the kind that doesn't ring, it pressurizes like a hand on the back of your neck. By the second morning, the silence had teeth. I noticed it first on the porch steps with my coffee going lukewarm in my hands, no crows bickering on the telephone wires, no finches gossiping in the oleander, no soft, stupid coos from the pair of doves that lived in the eaves and always left chalky white signatures on my railing. The yard felt staged, like a department store window dressed to look alive. The breeze moved the maple leaves. The wind chimes bumped each other once, shyly, then went still, nothing else. It wasn't just my house. As I walked to the corner market for milk, the whole town seemed to be holding its breath. No bird shadow skimmed the road, no flash of wings across the cracked blue sky. The nests knotted into gutters and traffic lights were empty bowls. There were little piles of seed in bird feeders, like abandoned offerings to a god that had moved away in the middle of the night. At the market, old Mr. Hawley stood outside under the squinting glare of the sun, thumb rubbing the nick in his wedding band the way he always did when he was chewing on a thought he didn't like the taste of. "You hear it?" he asked me. I almost said, "I don't hear anything," but the words pressed tight in my throat. I nodded. He tilted his head to the blank wires stretching down Misery Street, changed his mind about whatever he'd wanted to say next, and went inside. On the community board, flyers curled along the edges. Church, bake sale, missing cat, band practice canceled. An old notice about summer storm preparedness lay under a pushpin, the corner lifted just enough to look like an eyelid half open. A child had drawn a picture there, a nun-colored paper sky, a yellow house, two stick people holding hands, and a black line of chevrons in the corner that might have been birds or teeth. The letters under it said, "The dark is full." It made something in me flinch. I carried the milk home tucked against my ribs, scanning the hedges as if a truth might rustle itself free. Still nothing, an emptiness so complete it made the world feel flat, like I was walking across a painted floor. By afternoon, the neighborhood had learned new manners. People were speaking softer, as though volume might offend whatever was listening. Dogs whined at doors, then tucked themselves under furniture. A few houses flicked on radios to fill the void with talk, but the chatter sounded thin and wrong, like someone pretending to be awake while sleepwalking. The school down the hill kept the kids inside for recess. You could hear their laughter confined, a bubbly ghost trapped in a gymnasium. The first wrong thing that wasn't silence happened at 4:13 p.m. It was small. It would be easy to call it nothing, to tuck it into the family of cheap illusions. The way heat wobbles asphalt, the way you think you've left your keys there and find them here. There's a power line that runs behind my house, sagging ever so slightly between poles. I glance at it sometimes from the kitchen window without meaning to, the way you check a clock. At 4:12, it stretched through the air as always, a long, quiet smile. At 4:13, it dipped as if something landed on it mid-span. Not much, no dramatic swoop, just a brief weighted breath. Then it rose again and steadied. I didn't move for a full minute. The milk sweated in my hand. The window held my reflection like a second person trying not to blink. Birds are light. The line should have quivered, bounced, sung a little metal song. This had been a slow, considerate bow and then a return, like something heavier had settled, careful, tested the cable, then stepped off. I told myself it was wind. Then I told myself not to be cliched. When the sun began its sideways slide, the town polished its rituals as if they might matter. Curtains closed, lamps flicked on, porch lights, the hum of televisions rose, a quilt of canned laughter and crime shows sewn over the streets. People like to say small towns are brave, but I've always known the truth. We're good at pretend. We rehearse normal. At 7:52 p.m., the wind chimes touched each other again and made a single hollow toke, and then the night fell as if someone cut the cord that held it up. The dark here isn't heavy, it's thick. It pours. It fills corners and mouths and the thin liquid spaces between window and frame. It presses against the glass like a curious face. I could see my porch, the welcome mat, the first step of the stair, and then the boundary, the line where the light from my window dared no further. A soft little cliff. Beyond, the yard became an idea. I could have turned away. I could have recited the lullaby of reasons to not be a fool, but the sound came, not loud, not obvious, a brittle, searching click that tickled my inner ear and made my jaw want to shift. Then another, a scattered cluster of soft clicks like knuckles tapping teeth behind the hedges. My throat went dry. I shut off the kitchen light without thinking, shrinking my reflection into a pale smudge and letting the outside lean closer. The porch soaked up the moonless dark, the rail a suggestion of a line, the empty bird feeder a small hanging loss. I always thought you could see the dark if you stared long enough, that your eyes would drag shapes out of it, but this was not a place for eyes. This was sound. A whisper of weight on grass, a soft, careful scrape against wood, something like the rustle of feathers, except not quite, like paper trying to remember how to be a wing. The line behind my house bowed again, deeper this time. It didn't bounce, it sank, held, as if whatever wrote it was playing with balance. The transformer at the far pole gave a low, disapproving hum that crawled under my nails. Across the yard, my neighbor's motion light gritted its teeth and flicked on, the weak cone catching the corner of his fence and a patch of blossoms limned in tired white. The light held for 2 breaths, 3, then clicked off. It came back on immediately, angrier as though swatted, then off again. On, off, on, fast now, throwing a stuttering strobe across the fence slats. In the flicker, I saw nothing. That was worse than seeing anything. I realized my mouth was open, that I'd been listening with it that way people do when they can't admit they're afraid. From somewhere down the block, a child's voice sang a thread of a song, high and thin and cut off mid-word. A car door opened, shut. The dog 2 houses over, the one that never shut up, made a sound like swallowing his bark and crawled under something. The sky wore its stars like wounds it was ashamed of. I stepped closer to the window because terror is an obedient animal and I wanted to feed it. Something moved where the maple met the light, not a shape, a wound in the light, as if a piece of the night had peeled itself off the air and hung there, and everything around it was suddenly aware and unhappy to have been touched. A halo of wrongness. The wind chimes lifted. No wind. Once, years ago, I watched a hawk take a rabbit. It was a brutal grace, a crush and a lift. The sound of fur and air, and the world agreeing to a law older than mercy. This wasn't that. This was the world forgetting the law. A soft impact hit the porch roof above me, gentle as a hand finding purchase. Wood complained in a tight, private sound. A second weight joined it, further along, toward the gutter. The angle of pressure sent a tremble down the wall that my forehead felt before my ears did. I put my palm flat on the plaster. Something puts its palm flat on a wall when it knows a heartbeat is on the other side. I stepped back. The breath I took steamed the glass. It lingered, ovoid and human. In that fog, lines wrote themselves. 4 narrow arcs, a 5th angling off as if testing width. Not claws, not quite fingers. They pressed and then lifted, leaving clean something behind. My face, startled, framed in the wet. The house groaned the way an old animal does when it decides not to run. From the power line, a traveling sag, it moved as if a weight walked along it on patient feet, pole to pole, sending a slow ripple ahead like a thought passed from skull to skull. The transformer hummed deeper, sullen and dim. Somewhere a breaker tripped with a distant, helpless pop. The unbirds began to call. It is obscene to call it birdsong. We don't have a word for the sound of something practicing a language that doesn't own a mouth. Some of the notes were perfect: a thrush's liquid silver, a jay's bratty saw, the question mark of a mourning dove. But between those notes there were seams, glitches, like tape catching, like someone imitating a laugh and leaving out the part that means human. The sounds perched in the trees, over doorways, on chimney lips, in the hollow the night made in the street, and they answered each other with an eagerness that felt like hunger. On, off, on. My neighbor's motion light stuttered one last time and then surrendered with a little electric gasp. The dark spilled to replace it, clean and eager, as if darkness had weight and was finally free to occupy space. I turned from the window because even foolish animals know when to stop showing their throat. The hall felt too narrow, the walls too thinned by listening. I was halfway to the living room lamp when the front door's deadbolt moved 1/4 turn all by itself. Not a slam, not a rattle. The polite, exploratory noise of a hand that had never seen a key inspecting the idea of a lock. I stopped breathing. The house listened to me not breathe. The unbirds fell quiet on command. The silence that came next was the first truly complete silence I've ever known. No refrigerator ticking, no far road noise, no settling of wood. It wasn't absence, it was attention. I pictured the entire block with its heart pulled into its mouth, waiting for a decision. The deadbolt did not move again. The door did not knock. Whatever had tested the barrier was not ignorant, it was measuring. From the back of the house, the power line sighed with relief, tension rising, as if a weight had stepped off and leapt into the dark. The transformer's hum returned to its old weary note. In the trees, the unbirds restarted their practice with lightness, a giggle made of bones. Somewhere far off, a siren tried to unwind itself and failed. I stood there for a long time in that slim corridor between lamp and lock, balanced on the edge of an idea that wanted to tip me forward, open the door, let the night in, look it in the face, and name it. But this wasn't a story where names held power. This was a story where names went hungry. I turned the lamp on. The bulb hesitated and then complied, bathing the room in a tired honey gold. The light didn't feel safe. It felt like a photograph of safety. From the couch, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just 3 words, typed plain and without punctuation. Don't look up. The message time-stamped at 8:09 p.m. I didn't realize my eyes had already begun lifting until the words caught them by the chin. I stared at the carpet instead and felt something outside pass over the house, like the shadow of a cloud that had forgotten how to be a cloud. The light in the room dimmed and then returned, not because the bulb flickered, but because whatever had drifted above me asked the world to be less for a second, and the world obeyed. I swallowed. The taste that filled my mouth was the taste of a penny held too long in your cheek. The phone buzzed again. They hunt by silence. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. Whoever was typing was arguing with themselves. Fill the air. The wind chimes outside stirred, an awkward clink, as if they'd been breathed on by something that didn't understand breath. Without thinking, I pulled the chain on the old box fan I keep by the bookshelf. It coughed, wheezed, and then began to turn, adding a low, constant thrum to the room. I clicked on the radio, too, static first, ugly and comforting, then an AM preacher coming through the static like a man in a fog talking to himself about a God that wasn't listening. The sound thickened the air. From the porch roof, another small investigative shift. The wall beneath my palm loosened the tension it had been holding and settled a fraction, as if something had made a choice and departed without my consent. The unbirds stitched the night together with their wrong songs. The power line held. At 8:13 p.m., the text thread went empty. The number went unknown again. The silence outside retreated 1 inch, a gift I didn't trust. I stood very still in the noise I had made for myself, and it occurred to me that the world had not lost its birds. They had been replaced. And whatever wore the shape of their absence was learning. The next morning was louder, not with birdsong, those were still gone, but with the sound of people trying to smother their own unease. Doors slammed harder. Radios played brighter music, as if the right tune could trick the air into feeling normal. A leaf blower started up 3 streets over and stayed on far longer than anyone's lawn could possibly need. The air felt rehearsed. I told myself the night had been nothing, just the brain making shapes in the dark, the body matching a rhythm it thought it heard, except my front door was unlocked. I never leave it unlocked, and the deadbolt was still turned halfway, like it had been waiting for me to finish. I made coffee without looking toward the window, not because I was afraid of what I'd see, but because I was afraid of seeing nothing, the kind of nothing that waits. By mid-morning, whispers were leaking between people like steam from cracked pipes. The mailman skipped certain houses. Mrs. Carson down the street was burning sage in her front yard like she was fumigating the whole block. Someone hung tin foil strips from their gutters so they caught the light and clinked in the wind, bird deterrents for birds that weren't here anymore. The part that gnawed at me wasn't the absence, it was the presence. Every time the wind stopped, so did I. Every time my own footsteps ended, there was a beat before the silence settled, like something was matching my pace. At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Same unknown number as the night before. They remember you. The text sat there, patient. No follow-up, just a steady little wound in the day. At first, I thought the text was just a leftover ember from last night's fear, easy enough to blow out if I ignored it. But it stayed. Every time I checked my phone for the time, those words were there at the top of the screen like they'd been pinned in place. By 3 o'clock, the light had gone flat. No clouds, no shade, just that washed-out, overexposed glare that makes everything look fragile. People think the night hides things, but midday can strip them bare. I decided to walk to the edge of town. It wasn't far. Misery Bridge was only a 15-minute walk from my house. The police had chained it off last year after a truck went over, but the chains were still there, swinging lazy in the breeze like a warning someone forgot to take down. Halfway there, I noticed it. The power lines, every single one sagged. Not a lot, just enough to bow like a tired spine, and the bow moved, slowly, deliberately, traveling the same direction I was. I stopped. It stopped. I walked again. The sag returned, keeping pace. At the bridge, the lines ended. No poles stretched across the water. Whatever weight had been walking them would have to come down. I waited. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted to be wrong. The chains rattled, soft, like a hand brushing them. And then, in that washed-out daylight, something leaned forward just far enough for me to understand. The dark wasn't waiting for night anymore. It wasn't a shape, not at first. It was more like a fold in the air. The way heat warps asphalt, except this shimmer didn't bend light, it swallowed it. Then it shifted, and I realized why the world had been so still. It had wings, not feathered, not even flesh, more like the memory of wings, thin and warped, traced in black static against the pale afternoon. They twitched in uneven beats, jerky and impatient, as though they were remembering how to move. The head tilted once, twice. It was studying me. Where eyes should have been, there were pits, perfectly round, perfectly dark, and perfectly still. The kind of dark that wasn't a color but a hole. Around those holes, its face changed. 1 second smooth and featureless, the next twitching through parodies of bird beaks, human mouths, even the slick oval of something that should stay under the ocean. And then it made a sound. Not loud, just a dry, papery tick-tick-tick, like claws on a window pane, steady and deliberate. It was copying the sound from last night, the same rhythm, the same pauses. The thing unfolded itself from the chain like a question mark, straightening into an answer. It was taller than me, and it had been there the whole time, pressed into the silence, letting me fill in the gaps with whatever I feared most. I stepped back. It stepped forward. And then, as if bored, it turned, lifted in one smooth motion, and disappeared straight upward into the bleached sky. No flapping, no sound, just gone, except I could still feel it, above me, circling. My phone buzzed again. Don't go inside, they're already in there. I didn't run home. Running makes you look like prey. Instead, I walked, steady, casual, like I wasn't checking the sky every 3 steps for something I couldn't see. The front door was ajar, not wide, just enough for the latch to miss the frame, just enough for the house to feel like it was inhaling. I froze on the porch. My own reflection looked back from the glass, only wrong. The me in the glass was still, breathing slower than I was, watching me instead of mirroring me. The smell hit next, not rot, worse, that dusty, metallic tang of something that's been sitting in the dark too long, like the inside of an unplugged freezer. I pushed the door open. The living room light was on, but the air felt dimmer than it should. The corners of the room seemed deeper, like they'd been hollowed out. I listened. No radio hum, no box fan whirring. The noise I'd built last night was gone. The silence in here was full. Something shifted in the hallway, soft, deliberate, like weight adjusting in a space too small for it. I took 1 step inside, and that's when I saw it. Above the curtain rod in the corner, where shadow clings even in daylight, something hung upside down. Not quite a body, not quite a bundle, just an arrangement of limbs and folds, twitching in slow insect jerks. It was building something. The nest wasn't twigs or leaves, it was fabric. My blanket from the couch, one of my shirts, strips of curtain, and something else pale and fibrous I couldn't name. The thing moved its arms, too long, too thin, jointed wrong, and pressed the pieces together. The sound it made wasn't the dry ticking from the bridge. This was wet, muffled, like hands clapping inside a mouth. And then it stopped, and without moving its head, it turned both of those perfect black round pits toward me. The thing didn't move toward me. It didn't have to. Its head stayed perfectly still, while its limbs kept working, weaving with that slow, awful precision of something that knows it's not in a hurry. A strip of fabric fell from its grip and landed near my feet. It wasn't fabric, it was hair, human hair, tangled with threads of flannel from the shirt I'd worn yesterday. The nest was layered. Under the cloth and hair, I saw things, small, pale shapes with curled fingers and toes, no bigger than sparrows, not birds, not human, just the outline of something between, each one perfectly still, like they were sleeping or waiting. The thing pressed one of those shapes into the wall where it sank, not like it was being glued, but like the house itself was swallowing it. I stepped back, heart slamming against my ribs, and the floorboard groaned. The black pits in its face widened, not in size but in attention, like pupils sharpening on prey. It let go of the curtain rod and dropped, Not a fall, but a slow, deliberate descent, landing on all fours with the sound of paper tearing. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier, and then it clicked. 3 times, the same rhythm it had learned from my heartbeat last night. The thing started forward, each step impossibly slow, like it wanted me to hear every shift of weight, every creak of the boards under its limbs. My body screamed, "Run," but the silence in the house made even breathing feel dangerous. I backed toward the kitchen, my eyes locked on those black pits. The clicking stopped. It tilted its head, not curious, listening. Then, without warning, it lunged. The sound it made wasn't a scream. It was nothing, a rushing absence, like the air itself had been yanked out of the room. The lights above me flickered, dimmed, and died as I spun into the hallway, my shoulder slamming the wall hard enough to rattle a picture frame. I ran. The floor wasn't right. Every step sank just a little, as if the wood had gone soft underfoot. Something moved inside the walls, keeping pace, too fast, skittering in bursts, like it was cutting off every escape. From the living room came a heavy, wet thump. Then another, not footsteps, landings. I bolted for the stairs, but halfway up, a shadow slid across the wall ahead of me. It wasn't mine. I turned for the back door. It was open, and in the doorway, swaying in the dead air, hung a second nest. This one was larger. It pulsed. Something inside shifted against the pale lining, pushing outward like a body testing the limits of skin. Behind me, the silence folded in, compressed, hungry. The nearest window was only a few feet away. I didn't think, I didn't aim, I just ran for it. And as my hand hit the frame, the glass went black. Not dark, not shadowed, black, like something had pressed its face against the other side. 2 perfect round pits stared in at me, close enough to fog the pain with a slow, deliberate breath. The breath on the other side of the glass fogged in a perfect oval, lingering like it had nowhere else to go. My own reflection was gone, erased, replaced by those 2 round pits staring back. Then it spoke. Not in a sound that came through the glass, in a voice that came from inside my head. "Open up, it's me." I froze. It was my brother's voice, every cadence, every warmth in the vowels, even the half smile he always had when he said my name. Except, my brother had been dead for 3 years. "Please," it whispered, softer now. "You don't understand. You're in danger in there. Let me in." Something moved in the reflection, just a flicker, a tilt of the head too quick, too insect. I backed away, shaking my head. The voice sharpened, not louder, just closer. "You've gotten thin. You don't eat like you used to." A pause. "Do you still drink your coffee with half a cup of cream?" The words weren't guesses. They were observations. I turned to run, but from the hallway came another voice. My mother's this time, warm and pleading. "Sweetheart, please open the door. We can't be out here." Then another voice from the kitchen, my best friend. "Hey, it's safe now. Come see." The air filled with them, voices layering, overlapping. Some I knew, some I didn't, until the whole house was speaking to me, every voice someone I'd trusted. From upstairs, the ceiling groaned under a shifting weight. From the nest in the back doorway, something answered them with a soft, deliberate click. The voices didn't just call to me anymore, they competed. "Don't listen to her," my brother's voice said sharply, dripping with sudden venom. "She's lying. I'm the one who knows you." From the kitchen, my best friend snapped back. "You never knew them. Not like I do. You can't even remember the night in the canyon, can you?" The mother's voice cut through, trembling but fierce. "Both of you, stop. You're scaring them. you'll ruin it." They overlapped, snarling, coaxing, spitting insults that twisted memories I didn't even know they had. Dates, smells, secrets, every fragment of my life thrown at me like hooks baited with familiarity. The worst part wasn't what they said, it was how they said it, because every word was in the exact tone and breath pattern of the people I'd lost. Perfect, alive. The ceiling above me popped, a sound like a nail pulling free. Something shifted, heavy and impatient. A long creak stretched across the boards, as though whatever was up there was crawling in a wide circle, testing the weight of the beams. From the nest at the back door came another sound, wet and delighted. "Let me try," it said. And the voice was mine. Hearing my own voice outside my own body did something to me. It didn't feel like fear anymore, it felt like theft. "Let me in," my voice coaxed, soft and pleading. And then, lower, darker, or I'll come in anyway. The ceiling above cracked like a gunshot. Dust sifted down in lazy swirls, floating through the still air as something massive moved directly over me. The front door slammed shut on its own. Every window in the house went black at once, like hundreds of faces had pressed against the glass in perfect unison. The voices stopped arguing, they harmonized. "In here, in here, in here." From the hall, a shadow slid along the wall, not cast by anything, but moving like spilled ink. It stretched toward me, splitting into long, thin fingers that curled around the doorway. I ran. The kitchen was wrong, every cabinet hung open, swinging slightly as if something had moved through them looking for a place to hide. The refrigerator door trembled, the hum of the motor was gone, silence again, heavy and thick. Something hit the floor above me, hard enough to rattle the dishes. Another impact followed, then another. They weren't walking anymore. They were dropping, floor to floor, closing the distance. The nest in the back doorway bulged, fibers tearing, something inside pressing harder against the lining. It wasn't waiting for nightfall, it was hatching. The first limb tore through, long jointed, dripping in pale strings of whatever lined the inside. The house wasn't just full of them. It was becoming theirs. I didn't remember moving. 1 second, I was staring at that tearing nest. The next, I was shoving my way through the narrow laundry room and into the side door. It was unlocked. I didn't question it. The air outside hit me like a gasp I'd been holding for hours. I ran barefoot into the street, not looking back, not caring if they followed, only caring about distance. Houses flashed by in my periphery, but something was wrong with them. Curtains drawn tight, porch lights flickering in uneven rhythms, like signals passed between them. The same slow, sagging ripple in every power line traveling along in sync with me. By the time I reached the edge of town, the road simply ended. I didn't mean like it was blocked. I meant it ended. The asphalt dissolved into a black drop-off, a sheer wall of dark that pulsed like it was breathing. I turned to run the other way and stopped. The street behind me was gone. In its place, nests, dozens of them, hanging from street lamps, wedged into door frames, stitched along rooftops. Some twitched with movement inside, others already gaped open, their contents gone. Above me, the sound started, soft, scattered clicks, multiplying until the air trembled with them. I looked up. The sky was full, not of birds, of them, thousands, maybe more, their black pit eyes fixed downward, wings twitching in uneven, hungry unison. The light was dim not because of clouds, but because their bodies blotted out the sun. The clicking slowed, stopped. For one perfect, suffocating second, the whole world held its breath. And then, silence.